What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with y'all with another mailbag, man. We had a lot of storylines to catch up on, man. So I appreciate y'all tuning in as people start rolling in here. I know Scotty's live, and I know everybody wants to talk about the news of the day, which is Jackson State, being sued by the promoter of the Southern Heritage Classic, man. We probably might get into it if you guys want to talk about it, but we got a long list of topics today, man. We first got to talk about KJ Black leaving Florida A&M for a position in the NFL, man. We'll kind of break down how he got that, where he's going to be, and how you can support him moving forward, man, because it's a big step for a coordinator in the SWAC to get an NFL role, man. So I think that's something very important to highlight here. Then also, we're going to talk about some of the most overlooked or underrated FCS NFL prospects. There's a few names here that I don't think are getting enough shine based on the talent that they have at hand. So going to highlight some of those players. And then, of course, I think the topic everyone's interested in is power ranking those top five SWAC schedules, in terms of difficulty. So I really went through, kind of broke down what I thought about each schedule. And we're going to kind of go into why I think, who has the hardest schedule in the SWAC and who I think could have definitely improved what they were doing with their schedule for 2022. Some quick announcements for everyone who's in here. Tomorrow, I will be live 7 p.m. Central Time. We're doing an Alcorn/Southern spring football preview. We're going to go over the biggest questions for each program, some of the position battles, and things like that. And we got our special guest, Swack and a Fool. Both of those guys are going to be on here, and it's going to be an awesome live stream. So make sure to tune in. You're not going to want to miss that one. And then, of course, we're going to have CFL podcast on Thursday. My guy Kobe, he's going to come in. We're going to break down Jackson State going into the spring, talk about some of their biggest questions, positional battles, and storylines surrounding that program. So a very, very busy week here. 3 straight nights of live streams right here on the Blue Blood. So definitely appreciate y'all tuning in. But let's get into it. KJ Black is leaving Florida A&M right as spring practice was really, kicking up pretty much. I mean, they had a great recruiting class. This offense had some question marks. Is it going to be Musa? Is it going to be McKay? And KJ Black was somebody who had the opportunity to be on the coaching staff at the HBCU Legacy Bowl. He's been one of the most highly touted coordinators in the SWAC, and he came there in 2019 as the passing coordinator QB coach. He started out at PV, and he's really worked his way up the coaching ladder. And he worked with the NFL and the LA Rams in 2021 as part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship. And he really made that he made his impact when he did that. And on top of that, what he did with QB Ryan Stanley really leading him to the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year award, and how he impacted that offense really led him to make some big strides in terms of reputation and things like that. So he is going to be moving on to a position with the Rams, which I want to highlight one thing, and this is something I've talked about briefly on this show, but not too much. Is coaching trees in the SWAC. When you look at some of the most dominant Power Five programs, dominant programs in college football with NDSU, the coaching trees are real spread out, real deep, real broad, and you have a lot of those assistants going on to be head coaches and in important positions elsewhere. And that's something that seems to be really missing in the SWAC right now. And so I think for not only FAMU and Willie Simmons, but for Coach KJ Black to have that coaching tree start to develop and have a coach leave you to go coach the Los Angeles Rams is a great thing for the SWAC. I know it sucks to lose KJ Black, especially in mid-March as the season's really starting to pick up, but I do think it's a good thing for FAMU because it helps them establish that coaching tree. And I think they're going to bring in somebody who Willie Simmons is serving as the QB coach right now. They're going to bring in somebody with great qualifications, and I think it was a great opportunity for FAMU to get their name and reach out there, because every time someone talks to KJ Black, or every time someone hires him in the future, I personally think that's a great thing because they're going to connect him to FAMU. And those coaches who are always connected to a university always help that university. You can say Kirby Smart's the head coach of Georgia, but when you think about it, everyone remembers him as Alabama's defensive coordinator. Everybody always talks about Will Muschamp, Jimbo Fisher, Kirby Smart. No matter how much they accomplish, they always started at a certain school on a certain staff, and it's always related back to a head coach. So for Willie Simmons and FAMU, I think this was a huge deal for them, even though they lost a very, very successful coach in KJ Black. So as much as that's horrible, and I'm interested to see what they do there, I really want to see what KJ Black does at the next level for the Los Angeles Rams. And to be hired on a Super Bowl winning team, the team that won the Super Bowl last year, I think is even a bigger deal, to be honest with you. And, shout out to my guy Jordan here. Speaking of Musa, I heard he's been looking great in practice. I'm excited to see that QB battle. If I could be a fly on the wall in that QB room, I would pay whatever I needed to go do that, man. I'm excited to see who comes out of that QB battle. I saw a few, seen like a few things, read a few things. I think it's still too early to tell, but I agree with you that Musa is looking great, and I really do like Musa in that QB battle. Shout out to Ron, man. Thank you. But man, let's move on here to the other topics so we can get to y'all's calls eventually. Some of these overlooked FCS prospects. And I wanted to do this topic because I don't know if how many people read Hero Sports. They did a great interview with Eric Berry, who I'm working on getting back on the show for a live interview to talk about his offseason journey and getting overlooked really. But not just him, looking through the list of prospects from the FCS level, there were a few guys that I feel like were not getting enough national respect. And I really wanted to highlight them now, talk about why they might be potentially getting overlooked and what's happening with this draft process that potentially could be contributing to it as well. And we're going to start with the man that is on the thumbnail because y'all know how I feel about him. I know there's a lot of people in the comments also talking about this guy, and that's Eric Berry, Eastern Washington QB. He is being, and I'm not saying he should be a first round pick, second round pick, whatever. But the fact that he got no combine invites, no all star game invites, and this guy's been the best FCS quarterback for probably almost 2.5 years is mind blowing to me as a college football analyst and fan, and whatever you want to say. He's won a Walter Payton Award. He won the FCS Player of the Award for the spring. He's been a 2 or 3 time Walter Payton Award finalist, has been the Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year for multiple years in a row, is one of the leading passers in FCS history in terms of touchdown and yardage. He's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the FCS, and he's led Eastern Washington to a national championship game and led that program to heights that I think even the fans would appreciate him for. And the one take back on him is his size, but he's still right there about 6 foot. And we've seen so often that these 6 foot to 6'1" QBs have a place in the NFL and can make it. And with his live arm, his playmaking, I think he's really just a gem sitting there, and no one's really talking about him. And I really do think whoever signs him in the undrafted free agency period, whoever takes a chance on him in the late rounds, because we have seen players who haven't been invited to anything get drafted. Whoever takes a chance on Eric Berry is going to get a playmaker. And I don't know what his projection might be for the NFL, but I absolutely believe he's better than some of these quarterbacks on these NFL rosters right now. And I think if one look at the film and one look of what he did in that Idaho game this year with 7 touchdowns, no turnovers, and over 600 yards passing, and that was in like 3 quarters. So for me, I think Eric Berry is the first guy I had to talk about here because he has just been absolutely getting disrespected in this NFL draft process. Now, another guy, I know a lot of people in the comments will agree with me here, James Houston. And, this is an interesting path for James Houston, I would say, because mid-season, if I would have came on here and said James Houston isn't going to the NFL Combine, James Houston isn't going to the Senior Bowl, James Houston isn't going to be a top, not going to be drafted in the first 4 rounds, everybody in the entire SWAC world would be like, you didn't watch a single bit of film on him. You have no idea what you're talking about. That can't be possible. Look at what he's doing week in and week out in the SWAC. And for me, he just kind of fell off the map in terms of hype going into the draft. You got it. You had a lot of it coming out of the season, especially with, winning the SWAC Newcomer of the Year, being being a finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award. He finished top 5 in that. For me, what he did this year really should have at least put him on some boards where we're not just forgetting to talk about him. He had a little bit of hype at the NFLPA game, but ever since then, everyone just kind of seems to forget about James Houston when talking about the top FCS prospects coming out into the NFL draft this year. And I was looking at some film, doing some research on what the scouts' take on him was, and it seems like his versatility almost is being used against him, where they're looking at him as a tweener rather than a bona fide edge rusher or linebacker. And so that versatility or lack of fit is really making a lot of D coordinators and scouts be like, where's he going to fit at the next level? Are we going to be able to trust him in either role? Is he going to be able to be a dominant enough edge rusher for us to take him early in the draft? Is he going to be a consistent enough linebacker for us to take him in the draft? And so for me, I think he's gotta sell himself as one or the other, because I think selling himself as a versatile player almost might draw back his draft stock even more. So I think I'm gonna say, unless he's gotta put on some weight if he's gonna be an edge rusher in the NFL, every down. Because right now he's more of a pass rush edge rusher. It gets kind of step back in that outside linebacker role and be used in coverage just a bit. But I think he's gotta find where he fits in the NFL, and his agent and himself have to sell that to NFL scouts, because right now there's a lot of people taking a step back from him. And now you're looking at draft projections where James Houston is probably a fifth or sixth round pick right now, when a lot of people during the season, when he was putting up these ridiculous stats these ridiculous stats in the SWAC, were saying that he potentially could be a second, third round pick. And now it doesn't seem that to be the case. And I really do think Jackson State's pro day is going to be huge for James Houston to put himself back on the map and get that hype train rolling again in terms of his draft stock. The final player here, Pierre Strong, South Dakota State running back. He's been in the Walter Payton Award race multiple times. He's been one of the best running backs in FCS football for multiple years, and was really the figurehead of that offense when they went to the national championship. They made it to the Final Four this year. It was on the back of Pierre Strong when they had QB injuries, QB uncertainty. Pierre Strong carried them through that. So I really do think Pierre Strong's not being looked at as a viable option. I thought he had an amazing game in the East West Shrine game. I thought he really put on a dominant performance. And I think his speed, versatility, and also he's shown that he can be an every down in between the tackles back while also being explosive. He averaged over 6 yards to carry for South Dakota State. So I think Pierre Strong is another name that you should be looking for and be wondering, why isn't he being talked about enough, especially with the running back class really not being as deep as it has been in the previous few years. I absolutely believe Pierre Strong could be a top 5 running back in this NFL draft class, and he seems to be being overlooked due to being an FCS prospect. And so I'm really interested to see how Eric Barrier, James Houston, and Pierre Strong's pro days help them out. I really want to see what the scouts are saying there, how they're projecting themselves and how they're selling themselves to the scouts, because I think right now you really have to worry about all these guys' draft stocks and whether they're being overlooked going into the NFL draft. Jamin said, congrats to him. That's an opportunity right there for FAMU and SWAC players. He can put that word in. I agree. James Houston should have came back, in my opinion. Like, was he going to play in the NFL? He's a 3-4 linebacker. He's like Chase Winovich from Michigan, who was a linebacker but moved to DN because of his speed and was drafted as a DN. He's only like 6'3, 240, 250. I don't know if he's big enough for that. James Houston is an edge rusher. I don't know why he wants to play linebacker so bad. Just get drafted, ball out in preseason, and have it roll in an NFL defense. Just ball out. That's what I'm saying. You have to decide, because I think, I understand the reasoning on why in the NFLPA game he did take a step back and play linebacker, but I think I wanted to see him play edge more, because that's where you really had your breakout season, was at that edge spot. And so then you didn't give the scouts a full look at what you could do at that position that you eventually do want to play. And so And I know in the documentary, he really pushed back on in terms of being an edge rusher at times and how Jackson State was using him. But I think if he doesn't have the season with Jackson State, the hype around him wouldn't have been the same if he would have just stuck at linebacker because you had Keontae, you had Aubrey. That linebacker spot was really filled. So I think for James Houston, we're coming to a crossroads in his NFL draft stock, or NFL development as a whole. Now, for SWAC power rankings for the schedule, man, I went through and I kind of got the five that I think are the toughest as of right now. So this is based on how their opponents performed last season, what this team is projected to do, along with road, home games, things like that, and also just non-conference in general, what it looks like. So I got 5 through 1. I'm gonna go, counter order. So we'll go 5 to 1. And we're gonna kick it off at number 5 for the SWAC. I have Grambling State here in terms of SWAC power rankings for in terms of schedule toughness. So for Grambling State, they're out of conference games. I feel like are pretty tough. They got a road trip against Arkansas State, who just hired Butch from Tennessee, who took some time off at the Nick Saban rehab clinic at Alabama, and then they also have Northwestern State, who is a Southland team who can beat you any given weekend. They're just a tough team that can put up some points, and also they played Alcorn last year very close, and Alcorn got the edge over there. But where their schedule really gets tough is they get road games against Jackson State and Alabama A&M, two not easy places to play. Then you still got FAMU, Alcorn State, and Southern on your schedule, and those are all three teams that could beat you any given weekend. And this is year one in the Hugh Jackson system. You had some offensive coordinator uncertainty. You got your guy now. Let's see how your quarterback situation develops. Do all those wide receivers hit? Do you establish a running game? And does your defense stay where it was last year? Because if that defense regresses, that could cause a lot of problems for Grambling State. So I think Grambling here at 5, due to that Arkansas State game on the road to kick off the season, Northwestern State, a solid out of conference FCS opponent, and those road games against Jackson State, Alabama A&M really slide them here into that 5th spot. Now, for 4, I have Jackson State here. And for Jackson State, you get 2 out of conference games. You get Tennessee State from the OVC and Campbell out of the Big South, who Campbell just had the number 1 high school recruiting class out of FCS, number 2 overall class to Jackson State. And where Jackson State really gets put in this list, I know a lot of people are going to be like, how is Jackson State in the top 5? They get road games against FAMU, Alabama State, not an easy place to play in Montgomery. Alabama A&M in Mobile, I'm calling that a road game because it's in Alabama, and Alcorn in Lorman, which is not going to be an easy game as the final week of the season. And then you still have Grambling in week 3, which is not going to be an easy game, as Grambling could be rolling, and we don't know what Grambling is going to do. And I'm sure Hugh's going to leave some wrinkles hidden going into that Jackson State game and won't unleash everything in those 2 non-conference matchups to kick off the season. So I really do think Jackson State's non-conference schedule helps them. Everyone can talk about Tennessee State. I understand they haven't been great, in previous years, but Tennessee State really came on strong late last season. If they can find a consistent quarterback, whether it's Shalil from Auburn or one of those other guys in the room, I think Tennessee State has a strong foundation under Eddie George right now. And then for Campbell, with that recruiting class, with what Mike Minter's building up there in North Carolina, I'm very interested to see how Campbell matches up with Jackson State for homecoming at home. But those road games, that road stretch from FAMU, Alabama State, Alabama A&M, and Mobile, and Alcorn, I think really was what added the difficulty for Jackson State with the lack of home games, even though they have one of the most electric stadiums in the FCS. For 3, we're going to talk about a team I've already talked about. Alabama A&M falls here, and it's mostly due to their out-of-conference schedule and their first 4 games. I mean, Alabama A&M, if they don't get things clicking under Connell Maynard, could easily start 0-4. They get at UAB, at Troy, Austin P, not going to be a pushover from the OVC, and they're going to get a road game against FAMU in the first 4 weeks. And then they still got to go a road game to Valley, which we all know because of the field situation and being in Itabena, that's going to be a tough game. And then Alabama A&M as well. Jackson State and Grambling State are also on the schedule. Jackson excuse me, Jackson State, of course, in that Mobile game, in that neutral site game. So this is a brutal schedule, man, because you can see them, of course, upsetting some teams. But if I told you right now that they were going to lose to UAB, Troy, Austin P, FAM, Jackson State, and Grambling State, you probably wouldn't argue too hard. You say, okay, if things don't go right, they definitely can lose those 6 games. And then what is the season at that point? I think Alabama A&M, by week 4, we are going to know exactly where they stand. I think they get a good break with the Jackson State game being later in the year, because if that game was moved up earlier in the season and you get UAB, Troy, Austin P, FAMU, and Jackson State as your first 5 or 6 games, that would just be, I mean, that would have to be number one on this list. But their out of conference is tough. You got to play FAMU, Jackson State, Grambling State, arguably 3 of the top teams in the conference. I'm gonna go ahead and give Alabama A&M my 3 spot. Now for 2, my 2 and 1 really went back and forth here. I really was torn on who to put where, but I'm going to put Alcorn State at number 2. And they were so close to number 1. It's really 1A and 1B for me. But Alcorn State opens the season with a home game against Stephen F. Austin, who, I don't know how many people know this. That's a dark horse national championship contender team. They returned almost everybody. I mean, I believe they had 18 All-Americans or something crazy like that, and like 70 something percent of them were freshmen or sophomore. They're returning their quarterback, their running back, their top wide receiver, and Xavier Gibson, who I think might be the best wide receiver in the country. And then on top of that, they return almost their whole defense. Stephen F. Austin is a national championship contender week 1 coming into Lorman with a new quarterback for Alcorn State. This is going to be a tough game for them. And then they got to go on the road to Tulane. Then they got to go on the road to McNeese. And what makes their schedule so difficult is you have 4 straight true road games from September 10th to October 15th. You go over a month without playing in Lorman, and you are just on the road traveling. You get a bye week thrown in there, but that's going to be a real tough stretch for Alcorn State, in my opinion. And then on top of that, you get road games later in the season against Southern and Grambling, which a trip to the hole and a trip over there to Mumford are not going to be easy. Those are going to be 2 tough games. And then you get to end your season with Jackson State riding over to Lorman, a Jackson State squad that's probably going to be clicking at its best, because each week each of these teams are going to be rolling a bit better, get more chemistry built, get things figured out. Jackson State is your last game, is going to add a whole new level of difficulty, and they're going to be looking to come in there potentially with SWAC championship implications. So I think with Stephen F. Austin, road games against Tulane and McNeese, 4 straight road games for over a month, Southern, Grambling, and Jackson State, I got to put Alcorn at number 2 for my schedules. And then finally, my hardest schedule, and I know some people are going to disagree with me on this, is Mississippi Valley State, man. Valley got just, they have a very tough schedule. They start out with a road game against Tarleton State, who is an up and coming team in Texas. They just expanded their stadium. I believe they're going to be the second or third largest stadium in FCS. And last year, they led their conference in attendance, and it was only their second year at the FCS level. Tarleton State's rolling. They got a quarterback who's coming on the show actually tomorrow from Western Kentucky, who has played high level football. They have multiple All Americans on that team. Tarleton State is going to be a dogfight. Then you got to travel to Austin P as well. And then this is where the schedule is just brutal. You get road games against Jackson State, FAMU, Alabama State, and Southern. I mean, you can't pick, any harder environments to play in. You got to go play in Jackson State, where that stadium's going to be packed out, it's going to be loud, and it's a dangerous environment to play in. FAMU sells out Bragg all the time. That crowd's going to be into it, and that's going to be a tough environment to win in. Alabama State has a beautiful stadium. That's a tough place to play. And then you're probably going to get Mumford probably at 6 p.m., and those Southern fans are going to be into that game, and that's going to be a tough game to win. And on top of that, you have 4 out of your first 5 games are on the road. The only game they have at home is Delta State, and they just get a brutal opening with Tarleton State, Austin P, Jackson State. I mean, they all just keep coming, and Valley is going to have a real tough time, I think, staying alive early in the season. And then they also still get Alcorn State and Alabama A&M on their schedule. So they have it from top to bottom, and I think Valley it has a brutal schedule this season, and we're going to really find out what Valley is made of extremely, extremely early in the season. So that's my power rankings. To go through them real quick for people who just turned in: 5, I had Grambling State; 4, Jackson State; 3, Alabama A&M; 2, Alcorn State; and 1, Mississippi Valley State, man. So let me know what y'all think about these schedules. You can call in numbers on the top left. You can call in and talk about any of the topics we talked about tonight or anything y'all want to talk about. Um, let's see what we got here. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's true, man. Listen, Alabama A&M, Valley, Alcorn, those teams got such brutal, opening schedules. We're gonna know exactly what those teams are made of. You're gonna be able to know whether they're SWAC championship contenders or they just absolutely are not. And they still got to go to Daytona Beach, play Bethune-Cookman, man. And I mean, with these classic games too, it's so hard to predict because Southern Grambling can go any way. It's so different when you're playing a rival, Jackson State, Alcorn State. I mean, it really, really is tough. And for Jordan, I mean, I think the BCU schedule's tough. They were right on the outside of mine. I just don't think, for me, they just didn't have that road just overwhelming sensation early. And also, I'm really, really high, Jordan, on Tarleton State and Stephen F. Austin, which is really what I guess elevated Alcorn and Valley to my top 2 right now. Hit that like button on the way in, man. Appreciate y'all. Let's see. Texas Southern beat Florida, but can't beat Texas A&M Corpus. Well, what's the score, Khalil? Man, I'm not watching the game. I got some highlights, tuned up for after I get off this live stream. But what's the score, man? But yeah, Jordan, I just think, Bethune was probably about my 6, 7 spot, but for me, I still think the other teams had a little bit tougher. And for like a FAMU, the North Carolina game is going to be really tough. But for me, outside of that one game, I can't give them the rest of the schedule because I don't think their out of conference is really as challenging as others. And then like Southern was probably my lowest rated. They don't play really anybody. So I didn't give Southern a lot of credit on their schedule either. How big is Houston? 6'1", 225. She's definitely a linebacker. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why he was playing linebacker. But the problem is, I just think right now there's so much question on whether he wants to be an edge rusher, he wants to be a linebacker. I just, I think he's just 2 in between, man. Hang on, we got a call coming in. You're live. What's up, man?
Hey, this is Mr. Ford. How you doing? Let me turn this thing down here.
Oh, yeah. How you doing, Mr. Ford?
You're live. What's up, man? Hey, listen. I broke some things down here. Okay. All right. Listen. First of all, let me give condolences to Johnny Grier's family. He was a big-time NFL official, worked as one of the top officials. I think he had his own referee squad or whatever, but he died, I think, last week. Johnny Grier died, so we want to give condolences to his family. Okay, so happy for KJ Black. This is, one of the things that the mainstream media used to throw out, and they would say that if you worked at a HBCU, there was no way you could go up. You couldn't go to a Division I school as a football coach. You definitely couldn't go to the pros. So we're so happy for KJ Black. I remember when KJ came to the SWAC from Western Kentucky, a guy who, for some reason, the SWAC and HBCUs forgot about him. I don't know if you remember Henry Frazier. Do you remember Henry Frazier?
Yes.
He was at the last HBCU job I think he had was at North Carolina Central. He was there before Jerry Mack took over. And unfortunate incident happened with he and his wife, and he was fired. I think Henry's working somewhere. But I had always wished, just like I wished that Jay Hobson would come back to the SWAC, I've always wished that Henry Frazier would come back to the SWAC. Okay, you were talking about a tree, about coaching trees. You remember Jay Hobson's coaching tree? You remember what happened? Jay Hobson had the head coach at Florida A&M. He had that guy Cedric Thomas, who was the coach at Pine Bluff, and then I think he went to a junior college. But Jay has had a tree. You can go back and look at the people on his staff. They've done some great things. Let me just say this about this whole thing with this man up in Memphis. What's his name? Fred something. What's his name?
Fred. Is it Fred Davis?
Something.
Yeah, something
Whatever. He's
like
a
that.
pimp. Okay, let me just tell you this. Okay. For those of you who are listening to me, it's 2 books I want you to go and read. The first one is called White Wealth, Black Labor. I can't remember the man who wrote it. The guy who wrote it is brilliant. You should go back and read that so you can understand that Jackson State has got a pimp off their back. Yeah, somebody got it right here, Fred Jones. Yep. But get that book. The second book you want to read, when y'all start talking about ripping people off, there's a book called The Death of Rhythm and Blues. It was written by a guy named Stanley Nelson. Y'all need to go read that book. Listen, I am so happy Jackson State is fixing to get this pimp off their back. Let me tell you something. I saw him in an interview, and he was on there bragging about, and somebody put it right there, Dr. Claude Anderson. Baby, he is brilliant. If y'all want to be educated about this system and leeching and exploiting people, read that book. It's called White Wealth, Black Labor. It's written by Dr. Claude Anderson. Okay, but let me get back to this. I'm so happy for Jackson State. I don't even care if they go to court. Listen, this man had the nerve to brag about in 28 years he's given Jackson State $6 million. Listen to this, guys. Anytime you go to Jerry's World, when you go out there you play a game like Arkansas, Alabama, Texas A&M, when they come to Jerry's World, he gives them a minimum of $4 million. And this man he bragging about he gave Jackson State $6 million in 28 years. If that ain't pimping, I don't know what it is. All right, let me go on. Somebody put in your chat, and I'm glad to know this, about the Musa kid down at FAMU looking real good. Let me say this, and Ms. Campbell and them get mad with me about this. Baby, FAM can't win no national championship with that Rashaan Mckay. I'm sorry. I like him and all that, but I'm just telling y'all, they ain't going to beat Jackson State with no Rashaan Mckay. This kid right here, I just hope Willie don't play politics with this kid. This is the answer for FAMU. This Musa, this kid that's coming to them from Vanderbilt, this is the kid that's going to lead you to the Celebration Bowl. Okay, I know y'all gets mad when I say something about Rashaan Mckay, but see, I coach quarterbacks. The biggest thing wrong with Rashaan Mckay is it's obvious this guy ain't played quarterback long. I did research on him. He only played 1 year of high school football. His best sport was baseball. That's why he makes that baseball throw. And y'all gonna get over that, but I'm just trying to tell you, this Musa kid is the one you Rattlers want. This is the kid now. I'm just telling you. Okay. Let me go on.
I agree with you completely on Musa, Mr. Ford. I've been on that. He should be the starter, and if he's not, I need to know what happened.
He can lead them to the like they say, he can lead them to the proverbial promised land. Now, this is the guy y'all want, and I'm gonna tell you this right now. If Rashaan Mckay had played for Billy Joe, he would have never hit the field. Okay, let me go on. Let's see now. What else? Okay. Oh, let me just say this, and you were right about that kid, James Houston. But this is the other thing y'all need to realize. What's that kid's name? That's the middle linebacker. He's the transfer from Missouri. What's his name?
Aubrey.
Listen, when Aubrey goes to the pros, Aubrey ain't gonna be no middle linebacker. They gonna put Aubrey on the outside. He's gonna be a stand-up pass rush defensive end in the mold of a James Harrison. That's what he's gonna be. He ain't gonna be no middle linebacker. Y'all can forget that. They're going to put him on the outside. And listen, this kid right here, Houston, that you're talking about, if he wants to last in the NFL, he better go to the outside because that's where you can make your money. Because, see, one thing about defensive ends, outside linebackers, corners, the reason they make so much money is because you're on an island and the chances of you getting hurt is easy. When I was scouting for Tennessee State, they always told me this at Tennessee State. They always tried to get their DBs in the NFL because so many DBs get hurt. Anybody that's at a defensive end, you're on that outside defensive end, outside linebacker, corner, those are positions that people get hurt. And that's the easiest way to get into the NFL. Now, Blue, let me say this to you folks. They got any questions, put it in the chat. And you got any questions for me? Let me see. I think I done hit everything I wrote down. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, but I'm so happy for Jackson State that this finally coming to a head to get that man. Let me tell you something. If Jackson State wants to continue going to Memphis, I would tell that Fred, what you say his name is, Fred Jones. What's his name? Fred Jones.
Yeah, Fred Jones.
Don't go up there unless they're going to give you at least 1.5. Just remember what I said, guys. When Jerry Jones brings them college teams to Jerry's World, he gives them a minimum of $4 million. Okay? All right, come on, Blue. What you got from me? Tell your people to put this stuff in the chat.
Oh, yeah. So,
what you got from me, Blue?
So, Mr. Dwayne wants to know if you can tell us what is really happening at BCU, Bethune.
They got to get rid of Terry Sims. They got to get rid of Terry. The only thing I hate is he's got a good staff down there. And I think I mentioned this on your show before. Listen, before Terry Sims was there, they had a guy named Brian Jenkins. Brian Jenkins had that program rolling. He was dominating the MEAC. He had one of the best programs in HBCU football. He went down and beat Florida Atlantic at Florida Atlantic. He's another one I don't understand why they won't give him another chance. Just go and look at his record. Look at how many times he won the MEAC when he was at Bethune-Cookman. But Bethune-Cookman's problem is with the head coach. They got to get that guy out. I've seen him now. I think it's Blue. What is it? 5 years? How long has Terry Sims been there?
I think it's 5 or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken.
5 years. We've seen enough of him. That team has gotten worse every year. It's gotten worse every year. But the only thing I hate, Yogi Jones and them guys are quality. That's a quality staff down there at Bethune-Cookman's quality staff. But they got to get Terry Sims has got to go. He's got to go. He's the number one problem.
And I know your answer to this question because me and you have talked about it. I know you've talked about it on other shows, but TJ asked if the SWAC came out and said they were going FBS, would you be okay with downsizing the amount of teams in the SWAC to only the FBS ready schools?
No, they got to go as a SWAC. They got to take the 12. If you don't do that, you're gonna get killed like that. No, I've already said that.
Mm-hmm.
If the commission and them want to go FBS, the whole conference got to go. Everybody got to go. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's how you get separated. What they call it, divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's gonna happen to you. Y'all get mad with me about this, but let me tell you something. Hampton is going to the CAA. North Carolina NT is going to the CAA. Let me tell you something. They're going to get their ass kicked in every sport, especially football. They ain't going to get nothing. Okay? Now, you just read, I think everybody just read, their track team, I think, was runner-up in the indoor track stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, they might do all right in that, but let me just tell you right now, baby, they're going to get their ass kicked in every sport they play. They're going to get their ass kicked in football. They're going to get their ass kicked in girls basketball, men's basketball. They're going to get their ass kicked in baseball. Like I said, track and field might be the only thing they might win something in. No, if you're going to go FBS, go as the SWAC. Don't do that mess. That's divide and conquer. Ask Mr. Ford if Texas Southern. No, Texas Southern can't beat no Kansas. Kansas got to be one of the top 3 teams in the.
I think they might win it
in the nation, baby. That dude, Bill Self is one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, now they don't give them the credit because what we say in America is when we talk basketball, everybody say the ACC. Let me tell you something about the last 10 years. The best basketball has been in the Big 12. A lot of people don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But the best basketball has been in the Big 12. When you start talking about Kansas, Kansas State,
Baylor,
you're talking about Oklahoma, Baylor, that's the best basketball in the country. Now, let me just say this, I want y'all to know this. Now, a lot of people don't know this. See, in Alabama, the media is bogged down on Nick Saban and whoever the head coach at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me just tell y'all something. There's a guy, I've been watching him since he was at Jacksonville State. His name is Bill Clark. He's at UAB.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Clark is one of the best coaches in the country.
Yep.
Listen, he could coach at the Power 5. A lot of people don't even know who he is. He loves Birmingham. Listen, when Birmingham's program went out, he stayed in Birmingham. This guy can coach. That's why y'all was talking about who got the toughest schedule. All the toughest schedules is in the East, in the SWAC East. Let me tell you something. The out of conference games that everybody in Atlanta is talking about is Alabama A&M got to play UAB. I think week 0 on a Thursday night. Everybody's gonna be watching that. Then I think they got to play Troy. Baby, it don't get no rougher than that. It don't get no rougher than that. I don't know why you didn't have them at number one. And like you said, you got to go UAB. Okay, we talking about 85 scholarships, brand new stadium. You know what kind of athletes they got.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to go to Trust. You talking about Trust State. Then who was that OVC school you hollered out? What was that OVC
Austin P is the other school they got.
Austin, you got to go play Austin P. I think they've been good recently.
They won the
OVC.
Go to
FAMU, huh?
They won the OVC in the spring.
Yeah, and then listen, like you said, then you got your first SWAC game is Florida A&M in Bragg Stadium. Like you said, they could end up 0-4. But listen, I know Cornell. That's how he is, baby. But I'm gonna tell you this right now. It ain't gonna be like it was last year. Now he learned his lesson. Don't let. And somebody said, do Mr. Ford think a new promoter? No, let me tell you something about promoters, guys. The word that should be put in for promoter is pimp. Have y'all forgotten all of the money that Don King stole from Muhammad Ali? Don King stole from Mike Tyson. Don King stole from this guy here in Atlanta. They called him the real deal. What was his name? Holyfield. Mm-hmm. Listen, one thing you want to avoid are promoters. What they're going to do is take all the money and give you the scraps. Once again, y'all done forgot how much money Don King stole from Muhammad Ali. Have you forgotten the amount of money he stole from Let me tell you something about Don King. Let me slow down here. Don King was ripping Mike Tyson off so bad. Every time that Mike Tyson would fight, $150,000 went to Don King's wife. What does she have to do with his money? Listen, get rid of them promoters. Get rid of them promoters. That's rip y'all. That's what I'm telling y'all. See, we are in a capitalist system. Leeches and pimps come a dime a dozen. And like a lot of people don't, because we don't understand labor and we don't understand contractual obligations like putting together a contract. Baby, a contract will rip you off. You can work all night, every day, and let me give y'all a little story. You don't have to tell you this story. When New Edition first started, y'all know New Edition, that's Ralph Tresvant and Bell Biv and DeVoe. They had them little boys. They were 11 or 12 years old. They took them boys all over the country, and they toured all over the country. Then they took them back home to Boston. You know how much money they gave? The checks was less than $2. The promoters had ripped them off. Y'all got, I'm telling you, please read them two books. Please read them two books. Now, Blue, come on, what you got for me?
I think that's all from the chat. So I guess the last question for me, even though it's not really, football related, I know the big storyline in the SWAC is Jackson State in the women's tournament, and a lot of other channels are saying Jackson State has a good chance. My old co-host lives in Baton Rouge, and he was like, it's not going to be close, man.
No. Let me tell you something. I got the highest regard for Coach Reed and what she's done to that Jackson State program, that girls basketball program, because I saw them before she got there, and they was a hot mess. But let me tell you something, baby. Kim Mulkey has won NCAA championships as a player at Louisiana Tech. She played first for a lady named Sonia Holt. Then she played for a guy named Leon Barrymore. I think Leon might be still working for her. Okay, Leon and them won. She was on the team at Louisiana Tech. The star was a girl named Janet Lawrence. This is back in the early 80s. You know what she did over there at
Baylor. Yeah.
The girl that's locked up in jail and over there in Russia, that big 6'8" or whatever. You know who I'm talking about. What's that girl's name over there? What's her name?
Griner. Brittany Griner.
Griner. Yeah, see, she was winning before Brittany Griner got there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let me just tell you this. The reason they put her against LSU is to get her out of there. And Jackson has had a great and historical year, but guys, listen, we can't mess with no LSU girl. We can't mess with them. I'm sorry. Now the other good news is there's a girl from the University of Southern Cal. She's announced that she's going to transfer to Jackson State. That's good news. But guys, we can't play no LSU guys. We ain't on that level. Just let's be for real. Let's be for real.
I'm excited.
Okay, what's the next?
I'm excited to see the game, but I think that's it, Mr. Ford. If something comes up, definitely don't hesitate to call back in. But I appreciate you.
Okay. Let your people know if they need a question answered. Just put it up there for me. I'll call back.
For sure, Mr. Ford. Have a good one.
Okay. All right.
let's see. Some of the cities, the college or NFL or NBA gets to say so on what events come through town. Yeah, I think it's like that. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Sonic Boom. If you want to, I think the Hawks have like full control over what goes on in their arena, in Atlanta. I'm pretty sure. From all I'm hearing, all classics are rip-offs, yet that's the only games that HBCUs fill the seat. I guess it's a change in mindset. Got another call. What's up, caller? You're live on the Bluebloods. What's up?
What's going on Blue? Can you hear me?
Yep, got you loud and clear, man.
All right, cool. All right, so I got a statement and I got a question.
Okay.
All right. First of all, I mean, I heard we was talking about James Houston and his momentum slowed down. I don't know what's wrong with James Houston, why he being so stubborn. You know what I mean? Like JSU putting him on the line was the best thing that could have happened to him. I mean, he looked like a man child. I agree with you. He got to put on weight if he going to go to the end, but play at the end. Like you can use your abilities as you were as a linebacker to, help dominate, and get around, those big left tackles. You're going to be a little bit undersized, but you can get it done. Like the man, I feel he's a natural and he just don't realize it yet. He got to get out of that stubbornness mindset because we see it in the Coach Prime thing. He was trying to fight them dudes. It's like, you winning defensive player of the week every week, by, their help. So I just don't really get that. But the question I wanted to ask you, it's based off of Travis Hunter Nugget. So who do you think benefits more playing beside each other? Because like looking at Travis' film, he kind of seems like he's a gamer. He doesn't seem like he comes out the game like starting hot. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of the SWAC coaches have a lot of respect for Nugget, his skill sets, whatnot. So who do you think benefits more this season?
For me, I'm gonna go with Nugget, and it's for one of a few reasons. So one, Travis doesn't have anything to prove it. We don't know what he is at the college level. Like in high school, I mean, some people argued he was a better wide receiver, and Jackson State's going to use him on offense, special teams. So even if you don't throw at him, he's going to have opportunities to show what type of athlete and playmaker he is. For me, with Nugget, you've had 2 years where people just aren't throwing at you. Well, now they might have to. If you got Travis
Right.
locking up the other side, you're going to have to throw it somewhere. Like you're going to have to target either Nugget or Travis Hunter, and then and then even at slot corner and things like that, you have some real studs that are coming up. I believe it's Herman something. I think he's one of the guys coming up in that
Yeah.
secondary. You got Cam, wherever you want to go with that, but you have some guys all across the board now, and you still keep your linebacker unit with Aubrey, who can play in space a little bit. I think it's Nugget by far, man, because now you're gonna have to throw at him, and now it's up to Nugget. Me and Mr. Moore, I'll tell Mr. Moore this too. Now it's up to Nugget to make his living. Like this is your last chance to get an NFL look. You got lucky. Travis Hunter is there on the other side. If they start throwing at you, we're gonna need to see some production and see your real lockdown ability. Because for 2 years they've just been avoiding you because they're scared of you. And when they do throw at you, you've done a great job of shutting the side of the field down. So I think it's Nugget by far, man.
Oh yeah, I kind of side with you. I think now what I do think I think maybe if anything, I think at the beginning of the season they may try Travis a little bit because it's like we know what Nugget is,
Right.
you know what I mean, and but I do think Nugget's going to benefit the most. I think this is going to help his draft style. They also got that kid from California. I can't remember his name, but he was a dog. You know what I mean? He was a pretty good corner over there in Cali. But appreciate you answering the question, Blue. Make sure y'all get the lights up.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
All right.
But yeah, I definitely want y'all's take on that in the chat. Who do you think benefits more, Travis Hunter or Nugget, for playing against each other? I definitely think it's Nugget based on the past 2 years, because there were games, I mean, that they just won't even look that direction. And I believe, in the Alabama A&M game, even in the spring, Akil threw at them twice, 3 times maybe. They didn't really test them. So I think this is a great opportunity to see what Nugget has when he's going to be when he's going to be thrown at. Oh yeah, Tay Beasley. That's right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's coming in too, and I think he projects as a slot corner as well. And I think Cam's going to have the safety spot locked down. Of course, you're going to have Shiloh back there. I'm excited to see what the secondary looks like, and also who's going to step into that linebacker role that Keontae left. I think they got some good options, but I think that, me and CFL this Thursday, 7 p.m., we're really going to talk about some of this, who's going to step up for James Houston, who's going to step up for some of the players they left, who's going to be that Warren Newman type guy. I think Jackson State has a lot of interesting position battles coming into spring. Depends on how good the pass rush is next year. South Carolina State tested him. Yeah, he had a bad game in Celebration Bowl, man. I think he allowed some big plays. That 4th and 19, of course, is going to stick out in everyone's mind. But I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. If he could stay on the field this year um and at least that be the guy he was supposed to be coming into this season. I think Travis, because they're still not going to throw it Nugget. To not Mr. 4th and 19, man, y'all are killing me. I would like to see Travis in the slide. That's interesting. For me, TJ, the biggest thing for Travis, and it's the same type of thing you hear about with certain NFL prospects who might be too versatile, quote unquote, too versatile, because a good coaching staff will find where to put you. A bad coaching staff might be sticking you in the wrong position. So I'm really interested to see how Jackson State's coaching staff's what position he puts in him. How much is he going to play defense? How much is he going to play offense? Is he going to be your main kick returner, your main punt returner? Because you can't play everything all the time. I really want to see how they utilize his talent, because right now when you're looking, they're pretty deep at both positions, and I'm very interested to see how they're going to use them. Caller, you're live on the Bluebloods. What's up, man?
Hey, Blue, what's up, man? Dwayne Sweet,
What's
FAMU.
up? How you doing, Mr. Dwayne?
Hey, trying to make it, man. Hey, so because I heard you talking about Jackson State and positioning, their players, I want to ask you about that. But first I always have to ask about FAMU. So because I got on late, did anybody say any replacements for Coach Black?
The last thing I heard, and this was reported by I think HBCU Game Day, is they're waiting till after spring practice. I heard that Coach Simmons has taken over the QB role, and he's kind of acting as like, he was already kind of like the co-offensive coordinator anyway.
Right.
So it looks like
Mm-hmm.
Willie Simmons has taken over all responsibility there, and then they're going to address a hire after
Yeah.
after the spring game and everything like that. Because I don't think they want to be in a position similar to Grambling where they started on what's it called? They started like spring practice and they brought in a completely new offensive coordinator. They had to promote the wide receiver coach. So I think Willie's like,
Right.
we have our staff, we've had some turnover, the new O-line coach. Now you have to replace KJ Black. I think he's going to take his time with this one, get through spring practice, evaluate what that hire could bring to the program, and then go from there.
Yeah, because that seems smart to me, not to rush it and to take your time. Although you think that these coaches, they all know each other, and he may have had people lined up, because I'm almost certain this didn't just happen overnight. He
No.
was completely blindsided by it.
Oh yeah, no,
You know,
especially how close they are. Because I mean, I got to kind of see them interact like close up, because I got to cover the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and they were on
right,
the staff there, and they're really close, man. They were always talking to each other in a group together. So I would like, I agree with you. I would be very, very taken aback if KJ Black didn't, you know, give him at least, a heads up, or say, I'm having interest from the Rams right now. I'm just going to
right.
give you a heads up that this could be a possibility down the road. And I think Willie Simmons knew it after he completed that fellowship with the Rams in the first place and kind of set himself up for it.
Hmm.
I think Willie understood that, KJ Black's time in terms of promotion is coming. And I think he, like you mentioned, he was ready for it.
Yeah, and also, you look, and like I said, all these coaches, they know each other. They're always communicating. I don't care what level of coaching you're off. It's high school, college, or pros. They have these seminars that they all go to, and they kind of all know each other. And it'll be interesting to see who he selected. One of the other things I was talking about with JSU, and I said this earlier on Scotty's show that I don't see anybody on on Jackson State's team that they made better. That you can see progress from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. Like you saw McKay turn into somebody else. By the end of the season, he was a different player. When you come back, you look at Land. They built Land. The staff at FAMU built Land. He was a small kid that they turned into, All-American. So you see that progress. I didn't see it, and maybe I missed it. Maybe it was just me.
Okay, so I think in some players you could say that, but I think when you look at the best example, James Houston. I mean, they made a good call putting him at edge, but I mean, man, in my opinion, he had 2 or 3 times a better season this year than he ever had at Florida. And I think the reason he was getting better looks is because when you wear that Gator helmet, I mean, you automatically get a boost in reputation. Let's just be honest. We know what it is with Florida, LSU. Right. There's certain positions and certain defenses where if you're wearing a certain type of helmet, if you're wearing an Alabama helmet, you could be an average player and you're going to probably be projected as a first-round pick. Let's just be 100% real there.
Right.
His progression at Jackson State was unlike anything I've seen in a player. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, that came out of nowhere. I was excited. I made an episode about James Houston coming. If you would have told me his stat line in July when he committed, I would have probably said you had no idea what you were talking about. I was like, I've watched Florida. That kid's not a 20 sack kid. And so I think with him, he's gotten better. And I think, when you look at some players who might have regressed to a point or not lived up to the potential, I think some of them have been brought on by themselves in terms of off the field issues with Tony Gray, the disagreements in the locker room with the kid who left, Spencer. Nugget had off the field stuff and conflicts with the coaching staff that has kept him off the field. But when you look at, I'll see the comment right now, Santi Marshall, James Houston, Keontae Hampton, I think the development is definitely there. And I think this year is important because Tyson Alexander comes back. How is he going to progress? That's coming off a big injury, and I think he has a lot of potential. How is Malachi Wadman going to regress? Because Malachi Wadman coming into the season barely knew the playbook and didn't see the field for the first, 4 or 5 games. And then he comes in and almost becomes a SWAC All-American just in the last 6 games because of what he did. I mean, he was tied for the SWAC and leading the league and receiving touchdowns with D. Anderson, and he didn't even play till the Alabama A&M game. And then, you also have Aubrey Miller, who really developed into an All-American SWAC linebacker. And so I think there's examples of people are developing, but the problem is I think there's some other issues outside of the coaching staff right now in terms of developing players. So I'll have to push back on you a little bit because I think the best example is James Houston about people who have developed. Because I mean, I don't even if I called Florida fans right now and told them what James Houston did, they probably won't believe us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm right here in Jacksonville. This is baby Gainesville. So, I they love the Gators. But they love them so much they make me hate them.
I feel you on that. But I mean, I know when you look at the Jackson State team, O-line regressed. I think now that the documentary is out, we kind of saw why. There was no leadership on the O-line. The O-line wasn't focused. The O-line wasn't disciplined. If I gave you all the qualities of, who's the best O-line at FCS is North Dakota State. We'll just throw that out there. Mm-hmm. If I gave you all the qualities that they possess on why they're the best O-line in the FCS, Jackson State possessed absolutely none of them. I'm just being real. I mean, they had some talent. Amari Catchings had a great HBCU Legacy Bowl. Tony Gray has all the raw talent in the world. But that offensive line, like I said, no leadership, no discipline, no technique. I mean, no drive, no focus. And when you combine all those things together, you are going to get the worst O-line in the SWAC, and that's exactly what they were.
Yeah, well, enjoy the show, Blue, and you always do a great job, and you really enjoy what what you guys did down at the Legacy Bowl.
Oh
That
man,
was awesome.
appreciate
That
it,
was
man.
awesome.
Hey, I couldn't have covered it without you guys, man. So shout out to all y'all for tuning in.
Yeah. Hey, right quick. If you had to pick today, because I'm gonna ask you this later on. If you had to pick today, Jackson State FAMU.
Mm. I'm gonna go with Jackson State just because of the QB
Okay.
uncertainty at FAMU. Because I know what
Yeah.
I'm gonna get in Shador, and he's been in that game once. But I think it's gonna depend on whether Rashaan Mckay walks out there or Jeremy Musa and what they look like in the spring game and in fall camp.
Right.
And then on top of it, I know there's some great players. Terrell Jennings is no scrub. Jalen McLeod is also really, really good. But let's not forget Bishop Bonnet is a game-changing running back that walked away from FAMU to go to the NFL draft this year. And I think that is the loss that I don't think anyone's talking about. And
Yeah.
I got to talk to him at the Legacy Bowl. That guy is just a born leader, and I think you saw that in the documentary that they released on ESPN. And then on top of that, man, the offensive line losses are big too. And so I think just the uncertainty around key positions for me for FAMU would keep me from picking them right this second.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you'll get an opportunity to change your mind before the season
Oh
starts.
yeah, for sure.
So
Hey, that preview's
enjoy
coming,
the
man.
show.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you for
Yeah.
calling in.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Bye bye.
Let's see, 901. Call back in 901. Call back in. For some reason the weight room still ain't working, but 901. Call back in. Let's see. Shout out to Texas Southern for winning. They're moving on to face Kansas. Also, hey, since we're talking March Madness, right now on the community page, there's a link for a March Madness bracket for the Bluebloods. Go click on that. First place finisher gets 2 free tickets to a game next season for 2022. And second and third place will get a merch package from the Bluebloods. So make sure to go. It's a free sign up. I took the password off because the password wasn't working, but go click the link on the community page later tonight. Join the March Madness Bluebloods bracket and make sure you enter yourself for some great prizes if you can get that bracket right. Let's see. He said, just say the O line. Over half the season, JSU was dealing with their head coach fighting for his life. I'm pretty sure they were affected by that. I agree with that. They definitely were. I think you saw that in the documentary. Let's see. The SWAC O line are not the measuring stick to gauge D line talent. Florida fans probably never even heard of the SWAC. Man, Florida fans are built different. I got a lot of stories about that. Where's KJ Burke going to play at FAMU? Freshman from Jack's Reigns. Um, for me with KJ, it's tough because I would put him at slot. Sermon, I think, with just his athleticism and getting him out in space, I think slot is probably the best position for him. Maybe some packages as like a wildcat, but I think slot for KJ Burke, Sermon, is probably going to be where you want to put him. Let's see. If JSU O line is better, it's over. Period. I agree. We FAMU have 3 backs like Bishop waiting in the wings. Fair enough. Kansas is tough. Congrats on Texas Southern's Tigers win. Let's represent. Or on the street, Auburn might get first rounded. Listen, man, we ain't gonna start this. Look, we got the king of the jungle, SEC champions. That's what we're gonna put it on. But Jacksonville State don't want the smoke. Hopefully, we at least I want a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 run. TJ, I don't think we're a national championship team, but I'll take a 2 seed and like an Elite 8 run. Hopefully. Nugget was hurt in the Celebration Bowl. I think that's what I heard. So, who knows? I think I've heard from Mr. Moore himself. Nugget is back training, getting ready for next season. I think next year's might be a statement season for Nugget. Um, let's see. Sorry, I forgot to say prayers up for Coach Prom and prayers for healing. I agree on that one. JSU struggled against SU and won on a no call. Now run your mouth. Oh man, I love it. I love it. The rivalry is never dead for Southern. Also, man, if you want to call in, get your thoughts out. The number is at the top left. Also, 901. 901 call back in. I'm sorry I missed your call. I'm a Tar Heel and y'all lucky getting Kessler. I agree, man. Kessler was a blessing. Jabari Smith was more than I can ever ask for and in a player. Let's see. Y'all be saying anything to hate on JSU. Aubrey Miller got 0 playing time at Mizzou, became a first team all SWAC linebacker, but go ahead. I love it. Yeah, Santee Marshall. I agree. JSU has to improve player development. Let's see. We will be there for the SWAC ladies of JSU. Shador had a shoulder injury too. Let's see. It was a no call. SU just lost. It was a bad call on the JSU touchdown. They got called back. Man, listen. Okay, I saw a post about this, and I really agreed with it. That was one of the most underrated games of the year. You know, when people talk about games of the year and how competitive and what an environment, I don't think people talk about that JSU Southern game enough. That game was a I mean, from the crowd, from the stakes to Coach Sanders returning to the sideline to everything that happened, I thought that game was one of the best games in the SWAC all year. And with JSU coming back scoring 2 late touchdowns, Malachi Wadman just going he just blacked out, let's be honest. I mean, he was making plays left and right. I thought that game was so underrated in terms of SWAC games this year. Spring ball is going to be fun to watch. Man, I can't wait. Listen, in case you guys weren't in here, tomorrow, live stream at 7 p.m. Central Time. Me and Swackin' a Fool are going to be previewing Alcorn and Southern spring games, talk about the biggest question marks over there, and just really talk about how each team looks going into 2022. And Thursday, I know y'all ain't going to want to miss this one. Jackson State spring preview with our guy Kobe CFL podcast. Me and him will be live 7 p.m. Central on Thursday. So y'all get 3 straight nights of Bluebloods live, man. So appreciate y'all tuning in for that. Let's see. So who plays in the Celebration Bowl Blue? Right now, if I had to put money on it, Mario, and I'm gonna reserve my right to change this because it is March 15th, and this is a way, 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 way too early prediction. Um, I'm gonna go with a rematch. I'm gonna go with Jackson State and South Carolina State. I think it's a rematch in the Celebration Bowl right now, Mario. Southern choked. That's some good news. J State spring game is on ESPN. Yeah, man. Let me just say this. That is huge. And I don't think people are, I know, listen, okay. Some people are going to talk about it on YouTube and do this whole spiel, but I mean, in terms of national implications, this is a big deal because there is 0 FCS schools that are going to have their spring game even televised anywhere. Maybe an FCS school that has a TV deal with some like local station, but not an ESPN station. And you look at the SEC network; they're the ones that are going to really play all the SEC spring games, and ESPN for the big ones, of course, like Bama and Georgia. And then you got the Big Ten network, Pac-12 network for the other schools. But in terms of FCS and Group of 5 programs, I mean, this is better than what some Group of 5 programs in terms of exposure are going to get. And I think it goes a long way that Jackson State has Travis Hunter. They have Shador. They have Malachi Wadman. They have Nugget. They got Aubrey. They got all these storylines that people are actually interested in. And on top of that, your head coach is Deion Sanders, where people are tuned in that usually won't tune in. So I think it's huge. I'm interested to see what the viewership is and how they really promote it and what they do at the spring practice. Is this going to change what JSU does? Because teams run their spring games differently. I'm really interested to see the format and how Jackson State uses this to promote themselves and promote the SWAC. Let's see what's going on Saturday, April 28th. That they think they're going to the game needed to be on Sunday. Simon, what schedule are you looking at? Or what schedule are you talking about? Let's see, Blue, does FAMU have a list of possible offensive coordinators that are interviewing for the job? Is Billy Joe still panicking? So, Larry, I just talked with Mr. Dwayne about it on the call. Right now, FAMU is rocking with Willie Simmons operating as like the OC QB coach right now. There's a chance that they're going to promote inside similar to Grambling, but what I read on HBCU Game Day and what I heard is that they're going to wait till after spring practice to make a move, and Willie Simmons is going to take his time with this hire. So I wouldn't expect any moves for the next few weeks. If something happens, it's probably an internal promotion, but no possible list as of right now, Larry, that's been made to the public at least. Let's see how many players will be drafted from an HBCU in April. I would say from a hang on, let me get this call real quick. Caller, you're live on the Bluebloods.
Hey, Blueblood, what's going on, man? My name is Gabriel Green.
What's up, man?
I'm just now tuning in to your show. I was just wondering, have you heard about Jackson State Coach Prime and the SWAC being sued?
Yeah, I did. I haven't had a chance to look at any of the documents. Like I don't like coming on here and talking about stuff I'm not, yeah, I don't know all
Familiar
the
with?
details too, but in terms
Right,
of, what I know about it and what I've seen, I can see like I can see both sides to a point because
right,
on one hand was Jackson State and Tennessee State. Let me just put that out. Like were both teams not being paid enough? Yeah, you're probably right on that point. But on the other hand, did anybody see the explosion of the SWAC in Jackson State taking hold of the country like it did? Probably not in the same regard. And I think Jackson State did sign the contract. I don't know all the details if the promoter would negotiate with them, et cetera, which is going to change the whole argument, in my opinion, on it. I think it's a sticky situation. And before it went to court, I would have liked to see it worked out behind the scenes, worked out some sort of agreement. Like there had to be some middle ground before all this. But I do think that the SWAC is going to probably be held a little bit of accountable because they didn't have to schedule Jackson State in the SWAC Classic, at least for the first year. Anybody could have played UAPB, let's just be honest. But I get why they wanted Southern Jackson State in the Classic because they can't lose the boombox. I mean, they cannot lose that Classic game when they rotate off each other's each other's conference schedules. So I think there's probably both. Like I like to say, there's side A, side B, and then there's the middle ground. That's probably the truth. So I think everyone is probably a little bit accountable for how it played out.
Okay. Now, I would say this. Now, even though Jackson State, I will say they were being shortchanged for 28 years, but at the same time, they signed the contract. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I would say this. I don't think that they should sue the SWAC because Jackson State. I mean, okay, they knew that Jackson State. Well, at least I think they knew that Jackson State still had a contract with with the Southern Heritage Classic. Now, if anything, like I said, I think Jackson State mainly should be held responsible, for breaching the contract. Now, I'm like you, maybe they should have just, if there's a buyout clause, just buy the way out.
Yeah.
That way.
It's
that
just,
way. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it's just tough because to me, it looked like no one really had a problem with it until this year. So if everyone thought you were being screwed when you had the chance to re-sign, why didn't you leverage something and be like, we need to be paid more? Um, we're not re-signing this contract. And that's the question I have for JSU fans is if it was such a bad deal and everyone's been knowing this for a while, why did you sign an extension just a few years ago? Why didn't you
Right.
negotiate for a bigger piece of the pie or just say we're not going to do it because we feel like there's greener pastures elsewhere? And so that makes me think that just because Deion's brought this new light and new popularity and new fire behind HBCU football, that now it's a problem because now you see that there are greener pastures out there. And so it's this really, really tricky situation in my opinion.
Well, when you get a chance to check out off script, he had like a two-parter, talking about the whole situation. And I kind of put my little 2 cents in on it, but but I do think that like I said, they signed the contract, even though they might have been shortchanged. I'll say this, I'm gonna let you go. I told Scotty the same thing. Years ago when I used to be in a music group when I was in college, and we came really, really close to signing the contract with the local record label. And I took a look at me and one of the guys in the group took a look at it, and it said like 10 cents on the dollar. We looked at each other. Oh, hell no. So, so we didn't sign. So, but, so you, like I said, just have to be careful of what you sign. And I think Jackson State, that they don't have a lot of money. They needed the money.
Yeah.
So they signed. But anyway, man, it's good chatting with you.
Hey,
and
appreciate it, man.
You have a good night, man.
You too. Oh, he's yeah, I'll check out All Script after the live stream, man. I had an interview right before this that's dropping Friday, man. I'm excited to drop some interviews that we have on the docket for you guys. Let me go back to this question. I think I lost it. But it was how many HBCU players do I think are going to be drafted in April? And for me looking at it, man, I think for sure I think Marquis Bell is a for sure draft pick. In my opinion, I think Marquis Bell is definitely going to be drafted somewhere. I'm excited to see what he can bring. I think the kid from Fayetteville State really did himself a lot, especially at the Senior Bowl. I think he is most likely going to be drafted if I had to guess. Um, it's weird, but man, I think Akil earned his spot in terms of All Star games this year. I think he's probably going to be a sixth, seventh round pick somewhere in the later rounds. So I think Akil is going to be one of the draft picks that you're going to see. Um, I think Jatari Carter for Southern offensive lineman is going to be drafted as well. I'm very excited to see what he is. I think Jacoby Durant could be a late round draft pick out of South Carolina State. I think when you look at what he did at the combine, I think he earned a spot as well, especially with what he did over his time at the MEAC. And then I think Deshaun Dixon also earned a spot at the HBCU Legacy Bowl. A lot of scouts were just freaking out over this kid. And so I think it's going to be, if I had to guess right now, man, I'm going to say 6 to 8 HBCU players. I think that's my like low high estimate, but somewhere between 6 to 8, probably BP off the top of my head right now. Let's see. Their spring game is on a Sunday. I think the reason they did that probably, there's no NFL games. Okay, Sonic Boom, it could be, I don't know when the USFL starts. It could be something to do with the USFL schedule. They don't want to conflict with that or something like that. Or it also could be that it could be that someone big has their spring game. I don't know off the top of my head whose spring game is when. Right now, I probably can pull up a schedule next live stream. But if like Alabama, Georgia, and someone are all doing on Saturday, why would you risk losing that? Why would you risk losing the viewership and the attention? Because more people are going to tune into their spring games than yours. And so I think it's probably a chance, kind of similar to what they did with the Orange Blossom Classic last year. Is you don't want to fight for the viewers, so you play on a Sunday. So I would imagine that's probably what they're going to do. SWAC winner versus Ivy League winner needs to be set up in DC. Call it the Civil Rights Classic. Listen, I am all for a SWAC versus Ivy League winner. That's just me. I know some people don't believe that, don't want to do that, but I think it would have been a great game this year between Princeton and Jackson State. Or even if you do the teams, like if FAMU didn't make the playoffs, you do Princeton versus FAMU or Harvard versus FAMU. Those Ivy League teams are loaded, man. They got NFL players up there. They're in their own little bubble. They're the like, everyone talks about the SWAC being an isolationist, type conference. The Ivy League has it down on point in terms of being isolationist. Ivy League don't talk to nobody. They play their out of conference games and they do their own thing. And they got a lot of good teams up there. I mean, even Harvard knocked off Holy Cross by double digits, and Holy Cross made a playoff run this year. So those teams are good up there. Princeton had some real dogs on that team. I was really impressed with Princeton. Listen, Princeton was legit. You can say what you want about the Ivy League. Princeton would have smashed some people this year if they would have got a chance. Let's see. We keep blaming Fred, but he probably isn't making as much money as people probably think. Dion just needs to leave HBCUs and go back to Texas. I don't know about that one there. I think he's good where he's at. In my opinion, Fred Jones is Sedona because he possibly could have made the most money he ever has. JSU is booming right now. My thing is, does he care if ESPNU has a lot of people in the stands to show? I'm not sure about that, Sonic Boom. Not sure about that at all. Let's see. Princeton smashing Jackson State all day. People sleep on the Ivy League team that benefits both parties. I agree. Listen, Ivy League teams are legit, and I'll argue with that all day long. Let's see. What do you think James Houston chances of getting drafted? And I could probably include him on the list too. I think it's probably about I would say like 65-70% Gabriel, if I had to guess. I think there is going to be some reservations. He's not going as high as some channels and people during the season would have led you to believe. I think it's going to be after the fourth round, probably somewhere in between fifth to seventh round is probably where you're going to see James Houston taken. I think he's a type of player with an upside that you can take a chance on him in those type of rounds, but he's going to have to compete for a roster spot. He probably won't start his first few years in the NFL as he puts some weight on if he decides to play edge or he falls into an outside linebacker position or Mike linebacker position, depending on what type of scheme he runs. But I think James Houston chances probably 65-70 in my opinion. Why not interview Scotty on your show? First time for everything. So we probably won't do like a legit interview about like, his life and everything. But Scotty's coming on the channel next week, Russell. We're gonna do a spring preview with all script on here. So this week is SWAC in a full and CFL. Next week is Scotty, and I reached out to a few other people. Some people couldn't do it. So if you don't see a YouTuber or a columnist or whoever on the channel, it's not because I don't rock with them or anything like that. It's just because some people couldn't do it. Some of the people I reached out to had stuff going on, had some family issues behind the scenes that I won't speak about. But there are some, people I've reached out to that just couldn't do it. So if you don't see somebody, don't just assume that they weren't invited, because I invited a few people to come on and cover and do these spring previews. Problem isn't worried about complaining or criticism from people outside of JSU. 240 pounds is bigger enough to play linebacker in the NFL. You don't know stuff about football. When I get my interview, man, Sonic Boom, you've been rocking with us for a while. You got the shirt and everything, man. I don't know. We'll have to schedule it, man. We'll have to schedule it. Let's see. Listen, the Ravens have 10 picks this year. I'm excited for the draft. Man, I am too. Listen, and I know people push back on this, especially, because a lot of the channels that like we're associated with are strictly SWAC football. And, we're kind of in that weird gray area where we're like in the FCS realm more so than just like the SWAC or just the MVFC or something like that. Also, we do FBS content. So we're kind of in a weird space ourselves, but I'm excited because I think this is the first year that I think the FCS record for players drafted will be set this year. Um, I think there's so many FCS players that are just ridiculously talented, have so much potential. We're going to have a first round pick from Northern Iowa. To put that in perspective, Northern Iowa is about to have probably a top 15 pick, potentially top 20 for sure. And Trevor Penning, you got Marquis Bell, you got Christian Watson, who might be a late first round pick, second round pick. You got Troy Anderson. You have so much talent from the FCS level. Cole Kelly's going to get a look at quarterback. Hopefully, Pierre Strong at running back. The list goes on and on. And so for me, I'm excited to see what the FCS does in the draft, because I think there are some legit NFL players, legit NFL players out there. Let's see, bring them all on at once. Let's have like the most giant round table of all time, Derek. I love it. Mr. Forrest, Scotty, CFL, Kofi. Have you heard anything about where Akil Glass might go in what round? So Akil had a good all season, man. Listen, I know I know that Jackson State game sticks out in people's heads so much. They're like, after that Jackson State game, he can't get drafted. But you have to put his career in totality, where he came into this season, guys, as I think he was second, only behind Eric Barrier in total career passing yards. And so for me, I think Akil Glass winning SWAC Player of the Year and performing like he did at the NFLPA Bowl, performing like he did at the Legacy Bowl and the practices, and being a name that got the publicity on NFL Network and et cetera. I think he's going to probably fall probably about the 6th, 7th round, Michael. He's going to be a project quarterback, but I do think he's good enough. When you look at some of these backups, man, that just keep getting these contracts, I think Akil is going to be a guy that's going to be on an NFL roster next year. SWAC Buzz 2. Listen, well, I don't care how you fight it, you're a SWAC YouTuber. That's fair, man. Hey, I'll rock with it. As long as everyone's supporting and tuning in, man, we're good. If FCS players get drafted, I don't want SWAC fans to all of a sudden start claiming FBS. I won't let them Sonic Boom. Listen, if you're on the bandwagon that FCS don't matter, I don't want to hear nothing when they say FBS record of anything. It's set. You don't claim it now, don't claim it then. I agree. You got to be rocking with the FCS all year round. Let's see. Are you going to do an FBS preview before the season? Yeah, man. FBS content is coming. I've just been, doing my thing. We've been doing so many interviews and everything, and I really wanted to use this platform because it's real easy just to talk about FBS topics all day. And there's a million channels and a million blogs that do that, but there's only a handful where these FCS players can come and get exposure. Like talking to, we're dropping an interview with the Tarleton State quarterback. We're dropping an interview with the Stephen F. Austin DB later this week. We've interviewed players from all over the country. Like I was looking at, all the schools that we've covered on this channel, and there's no other channel on YouTube that is doing what we're doing in terms of in terms of promoting players at the FCS level. Everyone wants to talk about their doing it for this and doing it for that, but there's a lot of people out here who are just doing clickbait titles and clickbait shows. But are they cool with interviewing somebody from, a random FCS school to give them the shine that they deserve? Probably not. Like there's schools that I know that aren't going to get a lot of views on here that we talk about and interview players from, but I think those players are great players and they deserve a platform to talk about their story and get their name out there. So I think that's the difference. But yeah, FCS previews definitely coming this year. O-line for Northern Iowa is a monster. I agree, man. Trevor Penning is built different, Mario. Yeah, I mean, he is by far one of my favorite O-linemen to watch. Hope you're right about FCS Blue. That extra year made FBS eligible players draft class deeper also. Man, this whole year, man, the whole draft class is pretty deep. I know so the narrative that the draft class isn't good is stemming from the fact that quarterbacks aren't good, that the quarterback class isn't as deep as it was last year or anything like that. But for me, I think you look at wide receivers, when you look at offensive line, you look at defensive line, you look at DBs, the class is so deep. So I agree that this draft class is huge. Blue, who do you think Willie Simmons should hire as an OC from top FBS or top FCS school? It's gonna be tough to hire somebody from a top FBS school because it's gonna be right after spring practice, and a lot of people are gonna be locked in on recruiting and development, and they've already connected with their team through spring practice. What I think is gonna probably happen is either gonna upgrade somebody from inside the staff to that co-OC role, and he's gonna take a lot of the responsibility, I think, and they're gonna ride out this season, then he'll make a hire next season, or he's going to try to find like a lower tier assistant, like an offensive analyst, like Jackson State did, a wide receiver coach, a running back coach at the FCS level, maybe group of 5 level, that is looking for a chance to, show that they can be an OC. So I would expect a hire like that. I don't have any names off the top of my list because I haven't really done much research on who might leave, who might be connected to him. But I would imagine, I would say internal promotion would be my number one choice right now if I had to guess what was going to happen. If not, they're going to hire some, top positional assistant or offensive analyst from somewhere around the group of 5 level. Did you hear anything about that new kid that reclassified? TJ, which new kid that reclassified? Give me a name, position, something. I don't know which one you're talking about. Have you heard anything about the SWAC championship moving to a neutral site? Tennessee State joining the SWAC or any conference realignment? I have not heard about the SWAC moving to a neutral site, or at least not in any time soon. I think for me, they should do it because for me, I think a neutral site would be more fair in terms of that. Because I think as long as Jackson State's hosting it, it's going to be hard for anyone to come into the vet and beat Jackson State in a home game with the ramifications of a SWAC championship on the line, because they're going to put 60 something thousand in that stadium. And it's going to be a real tough environment for you to win in. And I think when when you look at some other stadiums like Mumford, when you look at Bragg, I think it's going to be real hard to win in there. So I would like to see it in a neutral site, but I understand the money for that university who hosts it is so big that they probably wouldn't try to move it. Tennessee State joining the SWAC. I haven't heard anything since. I think they're kind of evaluating their options right now. I know, potentially the CAA could offer. I know the ASUN could potentially offer. I know the SWAC has offered. So I think Tennessee State's kind of sitting back right now and seeing if there's any last second moves with some of these other FCS conferences. In terms of any, recent conference realignments, it's kind of died down. I think in the middle of spring practice, you're not going to see much movement. I would imagine we're not going to have a lot of movement unless it's a D2 team coming up, like we saw a few weeks ago with Linwood, and then also Texas A&M Commerce moving up as well. So I think those are probably the most recent updates. Oh, that Georgia D lineman. Okay, yeah. I haven't heard anything about him. I believe he dropped his final 5 not too long ago, but the last thing I read, and it was a few weeks ago, is that Georgia is really high on his list, but I'll have to do some more research for you, Gabriel and TJ, but I'll bring y'all an update on him. But I would imagine he's probably going to go to a top program. Let's just be honest. I mean, I know Georgia's been on him. I know a bunch of SEC programs are on him. That kid's probably going Power Five, and he wants to get that NIL money and get rolling on his career. Have you noticed that a lot of Alabama players don't do well in the NFL as expected based off of Alabama's dominance? Yeah, so I think for certain positions that works, but I think there's a lot of positions that doesn't work. So for me, when you look at like DBs, O line, D line, linebackers, man, studs, wide receivers have worked out too. I mean, outside of what happened with Henry Ruggs, um, excuse me, outside of what happened with Henry Ruggs, all those wide receivers have hit really well. You can even go back to the Julio Jones and Amari Coopers. I think the only position you can say that about Alabama players is quarterback. And I think, Mac Jones had a solid year last year, Tua's up and down. But I think when you look at every position outside of quarterback, a lot of Alabama players actually are um, really good. So I don't know if that's a fair critique. I think there's certain positions you can make that argument, but I think there's a lot of Alabama. I think there's more Alabama players, Diamond, that live up to the hype more so than don't live up to the hype. Neutral site only worked when it was JSU versus SU. It wasn't fair letting Alcorn host the first time without a year for everyone to prepare for it. That's fair enough. That's fair enough, Sonic Boom. I like that. I saw he has HBCU ties. Yeah, but yeah, his top 5 are A&M, OU, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and like I said last time I read, Georgia lean all the way. I would be surprised if Georgia didn't land him right now. But I'll look into some more, boards and talk to some people I know, and I'll let y'all know about where he sits. D. Milner, Derrick Henry. Yeah, Derrick Henry lived up to the hype for sure, man. I think Alabama players, sometimes the expectations are just way too high based on, what they did in that offense. And I think that's what you kind of saw with Tua, is that he kept trying to live up to the expectations and just couldn't do it. But guys, man, I'm about to have to run out of here. But listen, tune back in tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. We're going to have Swacking a Fool on here, talk some Alcorn Southern football. And then, of course, Thursday, my guy CFL's on here. We're talking all things Jackson State football going into spring practice. Be a call-in show. We're going to be live, so make sure to tune into those live streams. And also, make sure to tune in tomorrow. We got my guy Stephen Duncan, Tarleton State quarterback. It was a great interview. That's dropping at 11 a.m. Central tomorrow as well. So plenty of content to check out here on the Blue Bloods. But until next time, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.